The elevator doors opened with a soft chime, and Tamara Johnson pushed her cleaning cart onto the 42nd floor of Pierce Tower. The late afternoon sun streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, casting long shadows across the marble floors. She moved quietly as she always did, making herself nearly invisible as she had learned to do over the past 3 years. This floor belonged to Harrison Pierce himself, the 35-year-old billionaire who owned half the commercial real estate in the city. Tamara had cleaned his office every Tuesday and Thursday evening for 6 months, and in all that time he had never once looked at her directly. Today was different. As Tamara approached the double doors to Harrison's private office, she heard laughter. Loud, careless laughter that made her stomach tighten. The doors were partially open and she could see through the gap. Harrison sat behind his massive desk, his dark hair perfectly styled, his expensive navy suit jacket draped over his chair. 3 other men sat across from him, each one dressed in similar displays of wealth and power. They held glasses of amber liquid, probably whiskey that cost more than Tamara's monthly rent. "I'm telling you it will be hilarious," one of the men said. He had sandy blonde hair and a smile that looked cruel even from a distance. "Invite her to the gala. Can you imagine her trying to fit in with our crowd? She probably doesn't even own a dress that costs more than $50. "Tyler has a point," another man added. This one wore thick-framed glasses and a burgundy tie. "Your birthday gala is the event of the season. Everyone who matters will be there. Having the cleaning lady show up would be the perfect entertainment. She would stick out like a sore thumb." Harrison swirled the whiskey in his glass. Tamara expected him to shut down the idea, to defend her, to show some basic human decency. Instead he smiled. "You know what? That might actually be amusing. I could use a good laugh. Business has been too serious lately." The third man, older than the others with silver streaking his dark hair, leaned back in his chair. "Make sure you do it publicly, Harrison. Invite her where your staff can see. Word will spread. By the time of the party, everyone will be watching to see if she actually shows up. The betting pools alone will be worth it." They all laughed again, the sound bouncing off the walls and stabbing into Tamara's chest. She stood frozen outside the door, her hand gripping the handle of her cleaning cart so tightly her knuckles turned pale. 3 years ago, she would have stormed in there and told them exactly what she thought of their cruelty. 3 years ago, she had the luxury of pride. Now she had only bills and survival. She waited, breathing slowly, until the other men left. They walked past her in the hallway without a glance, still chuckling about their plan. Tamara knocked softly on the door frame and entered when Harrison called out for her to come in. "Ah, Tamara, right?" Harrison said, looking up from his phone. He knew her name. She had worn a name tag every single day for 6 months. "I'm glad you're here. I wanted to ask you something." Tamara kept her eyes down, focusing on a spot just past his left shoulder. "Yes, Mr. Pierce? I'm having a birthday gala in 2 weeks. Saturday the 15th. It's going to be quite the event. 5-star hotel, live orchestra, the works." He paused and she could feel him watching her reaction. "I would like to invite you to attend as my guest." The words hung in the air between them. Tamara knew this was the moment she should refuse, should tell him she had heard everything and knew exactly what kind of game he was playing. But she thought of her rent that was due in 5 days. She thought of the electricity bill that had already been extended twice. She thought of her grandmother's voice, gentle and wise, saying that grace under pressure was the truest measure of character. "That's very kind of you, Mr. Pierce," Tamara said quietly. Her voice did not shake, though her hands did. "I would be honored to attend." Harrison's smile widened, and there was something in his eyes that looked almost like surprise. He had expected her to refuse, she realized. He had wanted her to refuse so he could tell his friends the joke had worked from the very start. "Wonderful. My assistant will send you the details. It's black tie, of course." "Of course," Tamara repeated. "Will that be all, Mr. Pierce?" "Yes, that's all. You can start your cleaning." Tamara nodded and turned away, pulling her cart toward the private bathroom that adjoined his office. She closed the door behind her and leaned against it, closing her eyes. Her heart pounded so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. She had just agreed to walk into a room full of wealthy strangers who would be watching her, judging her, laughing at her. She had agreed to give Harrison Pierce and his friends exactly what they wanted. But she had also accepted an invitation, an offer of inclusion, even if it was meant as mockery. And her grandmother had taught her that when someone extends a hand, you take it. You take it with gratitude and grace and you show them what you're made of. Kindness meets cruelty with dignity. Hope survives humiliation. Love, even love for yourself, conquers shame. Tamara opened her eyes and looked at herself in the mirror. The fluorescent lights were harsh, showing every shadow under her eyes, every sign of exhaustion on her face. Her brown skin looked dull from stress and poor sleep. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and her blue cleaning uniform hung loosely on her frame. She barely recognized the woman staring back at her. 3 years ago, that woman had worn designer clothes and walked into rooms with confidence. She had performed at recitals and gallery openings. She had been Richard Johnson's daughter, full of promise and talent. Now she was just another invisible worker, someone people looked through rather than at. "You can do this," she whispered to her reflection. "You have survived worse. You can survive this too." She spent the next hour cleaning Harrison's office with meticulous care. She vacuumed the Persian rug that probably cost more than a year of her salary. She polished the mahogany desk until it gleamed. She emptied the trash and replaced the expensive hand soap in the bathroom. Through it all, Harrison sat at his desk, typing on his laptop, making phone calls, living his life as if she were not even there. When Tamara finished, she packed up her cart and headed for the elevator. As the doors closed, she caught one last glimpse of Harrison through the glass walls of his office. He was laughing at something on his phone, completely at ease in his world of privilege and power. He had no idea what his cruel joke had set into motion. He had no idea who she really was or what she had lost. The elevator descended 42 floors. With each passing floor, Tamara made a decision. She would attend this gala. She would walk into that ballroom with her head held high. She would show Harrison Pierce and every single person in that room that dignity could not be purchased and grace could not be mocked. She would accept every moment of this challenge with gratitude, because it was an opportunity to reclaim something she had thought was lost forever: her sense of self. By the time the elevator reached the ground floor, Tamara Johnson was no longer just a cleaner being set up for humiliation. She was a woman preparing for battle, armed with nothing but her integrity and the memory of who she used to be. Tamara's apartment was on the 5th floor of a building that had seen better decades. The elevator had been broken for 2 months, so she climbed the stairs, her legs aching from hours of pushing cleaning carts and bending to scrub floors. The hallway smelled like someone's dinner, a mix of spices and oil that reminded her she had not eaten since breakfast. She unlocked the 3 deadbolts on her door and stepped inside. The apartment was small. 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, a kitchen that was barely more than a corner with appliances, and a living room that fit a couch and nothing else. But it was clean. Tamara kept it spotless, as if maintaining order in her living space could somehow create order in her chaotic life. The walls were bare except for 1 framed photograph that sat on the small table next to the couch. Tamara picked up the photograph as she did almost every evening. Her parents smiled back at her, frozen in a moment of happiness that felt like it belonged to a different lifetime. Her father, Richard Johnson, stood tall and proud in a tailored charcoal suit. Her mother, Patricia, wore a red dress that complemented her warm brown skin. They stood in front of a building her father had designed, one of many throughout the city that bore his architectural signature. Tamara stood between them, younger by 7 years, wearing a blue gown she had worn to a concert where she performed a Mozart concerto. That photograph had been taken 4 years ago. 4 years, yet it felt like 4 lifetimes. Tamara set the frame down gently and moved to her tiny kitchen. She heated up leftover rice and vegetables, the same meal she had been eating all week. As the microwave hummed, she let her mind drift back to the life she used to have, the life that photograph represented. She had grown up in a beautiful home in the suburbs. Not a mansion like Harrison Pierce probably lived in, but a lovely house with a garden where her mother grew roses and a music room where Tamara practiced piano for hours every day. Her father had built a successful architecture firm from nothing, designing office buildings, museums, and private residences for wealthy clients. Her mother had been a teacher who loved literature and poetry. Tamara had been their only child, and they had poured all their love and resources into nurturing her musical talent. She started piano lessons at age 4. By age 10, she was winning regional competitions. By 15, she was performing with local orchestras. By 18, she had been accepted to Juilliard, one of the most prestigious music schools in the world. Her first 2 years at Juilliard had been magical. She studied under renowned professors, performed in recitals that left audiences breathless, and made friends who shared her passion for music. She had been on track to become a concert pianist, maybe even a professor herself one day. The future had stretched before her, bright and full of promise. Then everything fell apart. The microwave beeped. Tamara removed her food and sat on the couch, eating slowly as she remembered the phone call that changed everything. She had been in her dorm room, practicing a Rachmaninoff piece when her phone rang. It was her father's business partner, Anthony Cole, his voice tight with panic. "Tamara, there's been an accusation. Someone is claiming your father embezzled funds from a major project. It's not true, but there's an investigation. Don't worry. We'll sort this out." But they did not sort it out. The accusations were false, part of a scheme orchestrated by Anthony and two other partners who had been secretly stealing from the firm for years. They had carefully constructed evidence to make it look like her father was responsible. By the time the truth started to emerge, the damage was done. Clients abandoned the firm. Banks froze accounts. Her father's reputation, built over 30 years of honest work, was destroyed in a matter of weeks. Her parents had spent every penny they had on legal fees, trying to prove Richard's innocence. The stress was overwhelming. Her father stopped sleeping. Her mother tried to hold everything together but could barely manage. They sold the house, the cars, everything they owned to pay lawyers and keep the firm afloat long enough to find the real culprits. Tamara had withdrawn from Juilliard to come home and help. She got a job waitressing, contributing what little she could to the legal fund. She watched her father age 10 years and 6 months. She watched her mother's smile disappear. And then came the car accident. It had been raining, the roads slick. Her father had been driving home from a late meeting with lawyers. Her mother had been with him. A truck ran a red light at an intersection. The impact killed them both instantly. Tamara remembered the police officer at her door, his face somber as he delivered the news that turned her world into ashes. She remembered the funeral, sparsely attended because most of their friends had disappeared when the scandal broke. She remembered standing at their graves, completely alone, with nothing but debt and grief. The investigation into her father's firm eventually proved his innocence, but it came too late. Anthony Cole and his accomplices were arrested and sent to prison, but that did not bring her parents back. The firm was liquidated to pay debts. Tamara inherited nothing except her father's ruined reputation and her mother's love of poetry. She had tried to return to Juilliard, but without her parents' support, she could not afford the tuition. Her scholarship covered only part of the costs, and she had no way to pay for housing, food, or books. She applied for loans, but without a co-signer or collateral, she was denied. At 21 years old, she had been forced to drop out of her dream school and find work. The only job she could get with no degree and no connections was cleaning. She joined a commercial cleaning company that serviced office buildings throughout the city. The work was hard and the pay was minimal, but it kept a roof over her head and food in her refrigerator. She cleaned banks, law firms, tech startups, and eventually Pierce Tower. For 3 years she had lived this way. Invisible. Forgotten. Working night shifts so she could avoid seeing the people who had once been her family's friends. She had not touched a piano since her mother's funeral. She had not sung a single note. Music had been her life, but now it was too painful to even think about. It reminded her of everything she had lost. Tamara finished her food and washed the single plate and fork she had used. She looked around her tiny apartment at the bare walls and the second-hand furniture, and felt the weight of 3 years of survival pressing down on her shoulders. Harrison Pierce had invited her to his gala as a joke. He had looked at her and seen someone worth mocking, someone so far beneath him that she could be used as entertainment. He had no idea that she had once moved through rooms just like the ones he occupied. He had no idea that she understood his world because she had been part of it. But she would show him. Not with anger or resentment, but with the grace her grandmother had taught her. Her grandmother, who had died 2 years before her parents, had been a woman of incredible strength. She had grown up in a time when opportunities for black women were scarce, yet she had built a life of dignity and purpose. She had taught Tamara that true worth comes from within, that kindness is a choice, and that hope is something no one can take from you. When someone tries to make you feel small, child, you stand tall, her grandmother used to say. When someone offers you something, even if it's meant to hurt you, you accept it with grace. You take what's given and you turn it into something beautiful. That's how we survive. That's how we win. Tamara would attend Harrison Pierce's gala. She would accept his invitation with gratitude, because that was what her grandmother would have done. She would walk into that room and remind everyone there that dignity cannot be bought and worth cannot be measured by bank accounts. She just had to figure out how to afford a dress. Before you continue reading, have you ever felt invisible, like no one really sees the person you are inside? Tamara's story is about more than just a party invitation. It's about finding the courage to stand tall when others try to make you feel small. If this story resonates with you, please subscribe to follow Tamara's journey and let us know in the comments what you would do in her situation. Would you accept the invitation or walk away? The next morning, Tamara reported to the cleaning company's main office for her weekly check and schedule update. The office was located in a warehouse district, a squat gray building that smelled like industrial soap and floor wax. Inside, about 30 employees gathered around a bulletin board, checking their assignments for the week. Tamara signed in at the front desk and picked up her paycheck. The amount was barely enough to cover rent and utilities, with a little left over for groceries. There was certainly no money for a gown suitable for a billionaire's birthday gala. She thought about calling Harrison's office and declining the invitation after all, claiming she had suddenly fallen ill or had a family emergency. But the thought made her feel like she was running away, and she had already run from too much in her life. "You look troubled, dear." Tamara turned to find an elderly woman standing beside her. Dorothy Green was one of the company's seamstresses, responsible for repairing uniforms and doing alterations. She was small and thin, her skin a deep brown that had weathered many years, her white hair pulled back in a neat bun. She wore a green cardigan over her work dress and had kind eyes that seemed to see more than most people bothered to look for. "I'm fine, Mrs. Green," Tamara said automatically. She had learned to deflect concern. Sympathy only made the pain worse. "Now I may be old, but I'm not blind," Dorothy said gently. "I've been watching you for weeks now, child. You carry sadness like a heavy coat. I know that look. I've worn it myself." Something in the woman's voice made Tamara's defenses crack just a little. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was the stress of the past few days. Or maybe it was simply that Dorothy reminded her of her grandmother. Whatever the reason, Tamara found herself sitting in the small break room with Dorothy, a cup of weak coffee between her hands, telling her about the invitation. Dorothy listened without interrupting, her hands folded in her lap, her expression thoughtful. When Tamara finished, Dorothy was quiet for a long moment. "So Harrison Pierce invited you to his party?" Dorothy said finally. "And you heard him and his friends planning to make a fool of you?" "Yes," Tamara confirmed, her voice barely above a whisper. "And yet you accepted the invitation." "I did." "Why?" Tamara considered the question. "Because refusing would have felt like admitting defeat. Like agreeing that I don't belong in that world. But I do belong there. Or at least I did once." She paused, surprised at herself for revealing so much. "My family used to be part of that world. Before everything fell apart." Dorothy reached across the small table and patted Tamara's hand. "Tell me about your family, child." So Tamara did. She told Dorothy about her father's architecture firm, about her years at Juilliard, about the scandal and the accident and the 3 years of cleaning offices to survive. She told her things she had not spoken aloud to anyone since her parents died. And Dorothy listened to every word. When Tamara finished, her eyes were damp but she had not cried. Dorothy squeezed her hand gently. "Your parents would be proud of you," Dorothy said. "You've survived things that would have broken many people. And now you're going to walk into that gala and show all those people what real strength looks like." "I don't have anything to wear," Tamara admitted. "I can't afford the kind of dress that would be appropriate for that event. I'll look exactly like what they expect. A cleaning lady pretending to be something she's not." Dorothy smiled, and there was something knowing in that smile. "What if I told you I could help with that? Mrs. Green, I can't afford to buy a gown. I can barely afford groceries." "Who said anything about buying?" Dorothy stood up, brushing imaginary wrinkles from her dress. "Come with me, child. I want to show you something." Curious, Tamara followed Dorothy out of the break room and through a door at the back of the warehouse. She had never been in this part of the building before. It was Dorothy's workspace, a large room filled with industrial sewing machines, bolts of fabric and racks of uniforms in various states of repair. But in the corner, covered with a white sheet, was something else entirely. Dorothy walked over and pulled the sheet away, revealing a dress form wearing the most beautiful gown Tamara had ever seen. It was emerald green, made of silk that seemed to shimmer in the fluorescent lights. The bodice was fitted, the waist cinched, and the skirt flowed in elegant layers. It was sophisticated, timeless, and absolutely stunning. "I made this 30 years ago," Dorothy said softly, running her hand over the fabric. "For a client who was going to the Academy Awards. She was a famous actress back then. But 3 days before the event, she fired me over a disagreement about the hem length. She refused to pay me and refused to let me sell the dress to anyone else. Said she owned the design and would sue me if I did. So I kept it. All these years I've kept it." Tamara stared at the gown, speechless. "You and I are about the same size," Dorothy continued. "Or at least the same size I was 30 years ago. With a few alterations, this dress would fit you perfectly. And you would look like royalty in it." "Mrs. Green, I can't," Tamara whispered. "This is too much." "Why can't you?" Dorothy turned to face her, and there was a firmness in her expression that reminded Tamara so much of her grandmother that her chest ached. "I'm offering you something beautiful, something you need. Will you refuse an act of kindness because of pride? Or will you accept it with gratitude and let me help you shine?" Tamara thought about her grandmother's words. "Accept what is given with grace. Turn it into something beautiful." "Are you sure?" Tamara asked. "Child, I have been sewing for 50 years. I know quality when I see it, both in fabric and in people. You are quality. You deserve to walk into that gala wearing something that reflects who you truly are. Let me do this for you. Let me help you reclaim your dignity." Tamara felt tears pricking at her eyes, but these were different from the tears of humiliation she had shed the night before. These were tears of gratitude, of hope, of human connection she had not felt in so long. "Yes," she said. "Yes, please. I would be so grateful." Dorothy smiled, and it transformed her entire face. "Good. Now we have 2 weeks to make this perfect. Come by after your shift's end. We'll do fittings, adjustments, everything you need. I'll teach you how to carry yourself with confidence. I'll teach you the little tricks that wealthy women use. By the time that gala arrives, you'll be ready." "Why are you doing this for me?" Tamara asked. Dorothy paused, her hands resting on the dress form. "Because 30 years ago, someone did something similar for me. I was young and struggling, cleaning houses to support my son after my husband left. A woman whose home I cleaned saw potential in me. She taught me to sew, got me my first real clients, helped me build a business. She told me that kindness creates a ripple. When we help each other, we change the world in small but important ways. So I'm passing on what was given to me. And someday when you're able, you'll pass it on to someone else." Tamara nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. Dorothy pulled out a measuring tape and a notebook. "Now let's get your measurements. We have work to do and I don't waste time." For the next hour, Dorothy measured every inch of Tamara's frame, making notes in her careful handwriting. She asked about Tamara's height in heels, her comfort level with different necklines, whether she preferred her arms covered or bare. She treated the task with the seriousness of an artist approaching a masterpiece. "One more thing," Dorothy said as Tamara prepared to leave. "I know the Pierce family." Tamara stopped. "You do?" "I used to work for Harrison's grandmother, Elizabeth Pierce. I was her personal seamstress for 10 years before she passed away. Lovely woman. She had standards, but she also had heart. She used to tell me that wealth without compassion is just expensive loneliness." Dorothy's expression grew thoughtful. "Harrison wasn't always the way he is now. When he was younger, before his parents died in a boating accident, he was kind. A bit awkward, but kind. He used to volunteer at children's hospitals and read to sick kids. But after his parents died, something changed. He closed himself off, built walls, started surrounding himself with people who valued money over character." This information surprised Tamara. She had assumed Harrison Pierce had always been arrogant and cruel, born into privilege and raised to look down on others. "His grandmother tried to reach him before she died," Dorothy continued. "She told me she worried he would lose himself in that world of excess and competition. She made me promise that if I ever saw him going too far down the wrong path, I would try to remind him of who he used to be." Dorothy looked directly at Tamara. "Maybe this gala is an opportunity for more than just your transformation, child. Maybe it's an opportunity for his too." Tamara did not know what to say to that. The idea that she could somehow change Harrison Pierce seemed impossible. He had looked at her with such casual cruelty, such thoughtless dismissal of her humanity. But Dorothy's words planted a seed. Maybe this was about more than proving she could survive humiliation. Maybe this was about showing Harrison that the people he looked down on were just as human, just as worthy, just as valuable as anyone in his wealthy circles. "Come back tomorrow evening," Dorothy said as they walked to the door. "We'll start the alterations. And Tamara? Thank you for accepting my help. It means more to me than you know." Tamara hugged the older woman, feeling some of the weight lift from her shoulders. She was not alone in this. She had an ally, a friend, someone who believed in her. As she left the warehouse and walked toward the bus stop, Tamara felt something she had not felt in 3 years. Hope. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of work and preparation. Tamara continued her regular cleaning shifts at Pierce Tower and other buildings throughout the city, her body aching from long hours on her feet. But every evening after her shift ended, she took the bus to Dorothy's warehouse workshop and spent 2 or 3 hours there. Dorothy worked on the emerald green gown with the focus of a master craftsperson. She took in the waist, adjusted the bodice to fit Tamara's frame perfectly, and modified the hemline so the dress would flow elegantly when Tamara walked. She added small details that elevated the already beautiful gown. Delicate beading along the neckline, a subtle train that would trail behind Tamara as she moved, and a hidden pocket for practical purposes. A woman should never be at an event without a place to keep her phone and lipstick, Dorothy explained as she stitched the pocket into the side seam. Practicality and beauty can coexist. But Dorothy's help went beyond the dress. She taught Tamara things that money usually bought: how to walk in heels without wobbling, how to enter a room with presence, how to hold a champagne glass properly. She taught her conversation tricks for dealing with superficial small talk, how to deflect nosy questions with grace, and how to exit an uncomfortable conversation politely. Wealthy people have unspoken rules, Dorothy explained one evening as she pinned the hem of the dress. They're not better than anyone else, but they do have a specific culture. Knowing those rules isn't about pretending to be something you're not. It's about moving through their world without unnecessary friction. You already know these things, but you may have forgotten after 3 years away. Tamara found that Dorothy was right. As they practiced, muscle memory returned. She remembered attending her father's business dinners, gallery openings, and charity events. She remembered the subtle dance of social interaction in those circles, the careful balance of friendliness and boundaries. During the second week of preparation, as Dorothy fitted the dress one final time, she brought up a topic Tamara had been avoiding. "Tell me about your music," Dorothy said. Tamara stiffened. "There's not much to tell. I used to play piano. I don't anymore." "Why not?" "It hurts too much. Music was tied to my parents, to my old life. Playing reminds me of everything I lost." Dorothy pinned a section of the hem, her hand steady despite her age. "Grief is strange. Sometimes we give up the things we love most because they remind us of people we've lost. But those people would want us to keep those things, don't you think? Your parents gave you the gift of music. Abandoning it doesn't honor their memory. Using it does." Tamara said nothing, but the words settled into her chest. "There's a piano in the church 2 blocks from here," Dorothy continued. "I have a key because I sew costumes for their Christmas pageant every year. You could practice there if you wanted. No pressure, no audience. Just you and the music." "I don't think I can," Tamara whispered. "That's all right. The offer stands if you change your mind." They continued working in comfortable silence, but Dorothy's words stayed with Tamara for days. She found herself humming tunes she had not thought about in years. She found herself missing the feeling of keys under her fingers, the way music could express emotions words could not capture. Meanwhile, at Pierce Tower, something unexpected was happening. Harrison Pierce was noticing her. It started small. Tamara came to clean his office one Thursday evening and found him still there, working late. Usually he left before she arrived. But this time he was at his desk, staring at his computer screen with a frustrated expression. "Good evening, Mr. Pierce," Tamara said quietly, preparing to wait until he left. "Tamara," he said, looking up. He seemed surprised to see her, as if he had forgotten what day it was. "Right. Thursday. You're here to clean. I can come back later if you need more time." "No, it's fine. I'll work around you." Tamara began her usual routine, vacuuming the far side of the office while Harrison continued typing. But after a few minutes he stopped and just watched her. She could feel his eyes following her movements, and it made her uncomfortable. "Can I ask you something?" Harrison said suddenly. Tamara turned off the vacuum. "Yes, sir?" "You're always humming when you work. Classical pieces, right? Chopin, Mozart, that kind of thing." She had not realized he noticed. "Yes, sir. I like classical music." "How do you know all those pieces?" "They're not exactly top 40 radio material." Tamara hesitated. She could lie, make something up about listening to classical stations. But lying took energy she did not have. "I studied music in college. Before I had to drop out." Harrison's expression changed just slightly. Something that looked almost like curiosity. "What instrument?" "Piano." "Were you any good?" The question was asked casually, but Tamara heard the genuine curiosity behind it. "I was good enough to get into Juilliard." Harrison's eyebrows rose. He set down his phone and gave her his full attention for the first time since she had started working for him. "Juilliard? Really? Really? What happened? Why did you drop out?" This was getting too personal, straying too close to painful memories. "Life happened, Mr. Pierce. Sometimes circumstances change and we have to adapt." "May I continue cleaning?" "Of course. Sorry. I didn't mean to pry." But something had shifted between them. Harrison continued watching her as she worked, and his expression was no longer dismissive. He looked like he was seeing her for the first time, recognizing that she was more than just the invisible woman who cleaned his office. A few days later, Tamara was cleaning the executive break room when she overheard Harrison talking to his assistant in the hallway. "Are you sure we sent the gala invitation to Tamara Johnson?" Harrison asked. "Yes, sir." She confirmed she would attend. "Her name is on the guest list." There was a pause. Then Harrison said something that made Tamara freeze. "I made a mistake with that invitation. I shouldn't have done it." "Sir?" "Never mind. Just make sure she's treated like any other guest when she arrives. No jokes, no mockery. Anyone who makes her uncomfortable answers to me. Is that clear?" "Perfectly clear, Mr. Pierce." Tamara stood motionless in the break room, a spray bottle of cleaner in one hand, her heart pounding. Harrison Pierce had just defended her. The same man who had laughed with his friends about inviting her as entertainment was now making sure she would be treated with respect. She did not know what to make of this change, but it unsettled her in ways she could not quite name. That evening after her shift, Tamara went to Dorothy's workshop for what would be the final fitting. The dress was complete. Dorothy had outdone herself. The emerald green silk fit perfectly, hugging Tamara's curves in all the right places before flowing into an elegant skirt. The beading caught the light, making the dress shimmer like water. "Oh, child," Dorothy breathed as Tamara stood in front of the full-length mirror. "You are absolutely stunning." Tamara barely recognized herself. The dress transformed her completely. She looked elegant, sophisticated, and powerful. She looked like someone who belonged in a ballroom with billionaires and socialites. She looked like the woman she used to be, before grief and poverty stripped away her confidence. "I don't know what to say," Tamara whispered. "Say you'll walk into that gala with your head held high. Say you'll remember who you are and where you come from. Say you'll accept every moment of that evening with grace, no matter what happens." "I will," Tamara promised. "Thank you, Mrs. Green. Thank you for seeing me when I felt invisible. Thank you for helping me remember that I'm more than my circumstances." Dorothy's eyes were damp. "You were always more, child. Always. Now there's one more thing." She walked to a drawer and pulled out a small velvet box. Inside was a delicate silver necklace with a small pendant shaped like a bird in flight. "This belonged to my mother," Dorothy said. "She wore it every day of her life. She told me it reminded her that no matter how hard things got, she could always rise above them. She could always fly. I want you to have it." "Mrs. Green, I can't take your mother's necklace. That's too precious." "You can and you will," Dorothy said firmly. "Because you need it more than I do right now. When you walk into that gala, you wear this necklace and remember that you can fly. No one can clip your wings unless you let them. Promise me you'll accept this gift." Tamara thought of her grandmother's words about accepting gifts with gratitude. She thought about the journey she had been on for the past 2 weeks, from humiliation to hope. She thought about how kindness creates ripples. "I promise," she said, allowing Dorothy to fasten the necklace around her neck. "I accept it with all the gratitude in my heart. And someday I'll pass this kindness on to someone else who needs it." Dorothy hugged her tightly. "That's all I ask, child. That's all I ask." The day of the gala arrived faster than Tamara expected. She woke up early on Saturday morning, her stomach tight with a mixture of nerves and anticipation. She had taken the day off work, one of only a handful of days she had missed in 3 years, to prepare properly. Her tiny apartment seemed even smaller as she moved through her morning routine. She cleaned every surface as if making her living space perfect could somehow prepare her for the evening ahead. She ate a light breakfast, knowing she would be too nervous to eat much later. And then she sat on her couch, staring at the garment bag that held Dorothy's emerald green gown, trying to convince herself she could actually do this. The invitation on her coffee table listed the event start time as 7 in the evening. Dorothy had advised her to arrive at 7:30, fashionably late but not so late that she would make a dramatic entrance. "You want to slip in when people are already engaged in conversation," Dorothy had explained. "That way you can get your bearings before anyone really notices you." At 3 in the afternoon, Dorothy arrived at Tamara's apartment, carrying a large bag filled with supplies. She had insisted on helping Tamara get ready, claiming that no woman should have to prepare for an event like this alone. "First things first," Dorothy said, unpacking her bag. "We're going to do your hair and makeup. Nothing too heavy, nothing that doesn't look like you. We're enhancing, not hiding." Dorothy had brought hair products, a curling iron, makeup, and even a pair of elegant heels that she claimed would fit Tamara perfectly. They were silver with a modest heel height, and they sparkled subtly under the apartment's dim lighting. "These were mine from back when I attended fancy events," Dorothy explained. were the same shoe size so they should work beautifully with the dress. For the next 3 hours, Dorothy worked her magic. She washed and conditioned Tamara's hair, then carefully styled it into an elegant updo that left a few soft curls framing her face. She applied makeup with a light hand, focusing on enhancing Tamara's natural beauty rather than covering it. Foundation that evened her skin tone, subtle highlighting on her cheekbones, a soft brown eyeshadow that made her dark eyes stand out, and a berry-colored lipstick that complemented the emerald gown perfectly. "Look at you," Dorothy kept saying. "Just look at you." When it was time to put on the dress, Dorothy helped Tamara step into it carefully. She zipped up the back and adjusted the fabric until everything sat perfectly. Then she fastened the silver necklace around Tamara's neck, the little bird pendant resting just below her collarbone. Finally, Tamara slipped on the silver heels and stood in front of the full-length mirror Dorothy had propped against the wall. She did not recognize the woman staring back at her. The emerald green dress hugged her body perfectly, the color making her brown skin glow. The beading caught the light, creating subtle sparkles as she moved. Her hair was elegant, her makeup flawless but natural. The silver necklace and shoes completed the look, adding just enough shine without being ostentatious. She looked beautiful. Not like a cleaner pretending to be wealthy, but like a woman who belonged in elegant spaces. She looked like her mother, like her grandmother, like all the strong women who had come before her and faced their challenges with grace. "Oh, child," Dorothy whispered, her eyes filling with tears. "You are absolutely breathtaking." Tamara's own eyes were damp as she turned to hug Dorothy. "I could never have done this without you. You gave me more than a dress. You gave me back a piece of myself I thought was gone forever. You always had it, sweet girl. I just helped you remember where to find it. Now you need to leave soon. Do you have transportation arranged?" Tamara had planned to take the bus, but Dorothy shook her head firmly. "Absolutely not. You're not arriving at a 5-star hotel gala on public transportation in that gown. I called a car service. They'll be here in 15 minutes. My treat. Don't even try to argue. Mrs. Green. What did I tell you about accepting gifts with grace?" Dorothy said, smiling through her tears. "You say thank you and you let people help you. That's how kindness works." "Thank you," Tamara said softly. "Thank you for everything." They sat together on Tamara's small couch, waiting for the car to arrive. Dorothy held Tamara's hand and offered final pieces of advice. "Remember to breathe. If you feel overwhelmed, find a quiet corner and take a moment. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. Just be yourself. That's more than enough. What if they're cruel? What if Harrison's friends say horrible things? Then you smile politely and walk away. You don't engage with cruelty. You rise above it. But Tamara? I don't think that's going to happen. I think tonight is going to surprise you in ways you can't imagine." A car horn honked outside. The car service had arrived. Dorothy walked Tamara down the 5 flights of stairs, holding the train of her dress to keep it from dragging. At the building's entrance, a sleek black car waited. The driver, a middle-aged man in a neat suit, got out and opened the back door for Tamara. "You look like a princess," he said kindly. "Thank you," Tamara replied, her voice shaky. Dorothy hugged her one more time. "Go show them who you are. Go be magnificent. And remember, no matter what happens tonight, you are worthy of respect and kindness. Never forget that." Tamara nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. She slid into the back seat of the car and the driver closed the door gently. Through the window, she watched Dorothy standing on the sidewalk, waving. The older woman looked proud and happy, like a mother seeing her daughter off to prom. As the car pulled away from the curb, Tamara took a deep breath. This was it. There was no turning back now. In 30 minutes, she would walk into the Grand Sterling Hotel and face Harrison Pierce and his wealthy friends. She would face their judgment, their surprise, and possibly their continued mockery. But she would do it with grace. She would do it with dignity. She would accept every moment of this experience, good or bad, because she had learned that running from challenges only made them bigger. She had learned that kindness and hope were choices she could make, even in the face of cruelty. The car drove through the city as evening fell. The streets were busy with Saturday night traffic, people heading out to restaurants and theaters. Tamara watched the city pass by her window, this place that had been her home for 24 years, through wealth and poverty, joy and grief. 20 minutes later, the car pulled up in front of the Grand Sterling Hotel. It was one of the most prestigious hotels in the city, a historic building with ornate architecture and a reputation for hosting only the most exclusive events. Red carpet led from the curb to the entrance, and a doorman in a crisp uniform stood ready to greet guests. The driver came around and opened Tamara's door. She stepped out carefully, mindful of her heels and the dress's delicate fabric. The evening air was cool against her skin. She could hear music drifting from inside the hotel, classical pieces played by what sounded like a live orchestra. "Good luck, miss," the driver said warmly. "You're going to have a wonderful evening." "Thank you," Tamara replied, appreciating his kindness. She walked toward the entrance, her heels clicking on the pavement. The doorman opened the heavy glass doors for her, and she stepped into the hotel's magnificent lobby. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, casting warm light over marble floors and elegant furniture. Well-dressed people moved through the space, heading toward a set of double doors on the far side where the gala was taking place. Tamara joined the flow of guests, her heart pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. She passed through the double doors and entered the ballroom. And stopped breathing. The ballroom was enormous, with soaring ceilings, more crystal chandeliers, and massive windows that looked out over the city skyline. Round tables covered in white linens filled the space, each one set with fine china and elegant centerpieces. A stage at the far end of the room held a full orchestra, currently playing a Vivaldi piece. Hundreds of people in formal attire mingled, laughed, and sipped champagne from crystal flutes. It was everything she had imagined and more. It was the kind of event she had attended with her parents, back when life was different. It was beautiful and overwhelming and terrifying all at once. Tamara stood in the entrance for a moment, gathering her courage. Then she lifted her chin, straightened her shoulders, and walked into the ballroom. Several people glanced her way as she passed. She saw their eyes widen slightly, saw them take in her appearance with surprise and approval. A few whispered to their companions. But no one laughed. No one sneered. They simply noticed her, which was more than she had experienced in 3 years. She made her way to one of the high-top cocktail tables near the windows and stood there, trying to blend in while also looking for Harrison. She needed to let him know she had arrived, needed to acknowledge his invitation, but she did not see him anywhere in the crowd. "Excuse me," a voice said beside her. "Are you a friend of Harrison's?" Tamara turned to find a woman about her age, dressed in a stunning red gown. She had kind eyes and a genuine smile. "I work for Mr. Pierce," Tamara replied carefully. "He invited me to the gala." "How wonderful. I'm Courtney Zhang. My family's company does business with Pierce Holdings. Harrison throws the best parties, doesn't he? The orchestra alone must have cost a fortune." "It's beautiful," Tamara agreed. They chatted for a few minutes about the venue and the music. Courtney was friendly and easy to talk to, treating Tamara like any other guest. When a waiter passed with a tray of champagne, Courtney grabbed 2 glasses and handed one to Tamara. "To new friendships," Courtney said, raising her glass. "To new friendships," Tamara echoed, clinking her glass against Courtney's. And just like that, Tamara was no longer standing alone at a party where she did not belong. She was conversing with a fellow guest, participating in the event like everyone else. It was a small moment, but it felt significant. As they talked, Tamara scanned the room once more. And finally she saw him. Harrison Pierce stood near the stage, surrounded by a group of people. He wore a perfectly tailored black tuxedo, his dark hair styled impeccably, his expression relaxed and confident. He was laughing at something someone said, completely at ease in his element. And then, as if sensing her gaze, he looked up. Their eyes met across the crowded ballroom. Harrison's expression changed completely. The easy smile faded. His eyes widened. He stared at her like he was seeing something impossible, something that did not make sense in his carefully ordered world. Tamara held his gaze, her chin lifted, her posture perfect. She did not look away. She did not shrink. She simply stood there, in her emerald green gown and Dorothy's mother's necklace, and let him see her. Really see her. Not the invisible cleaner in a baggy uniform, but the woman she actually was. Harrison excused himself from the group and started walking toward her, his eyes never leaving her face. Tamara's heart raced, but she did not move. She stood her ground, waiting. This was the moment everything changed. Harrison Pierce moved through the crowded ballroom with purpose, his eyes fixed on Tamara. People tried to stop him, to pull him into conversations or offer birthday wishes, but he barely acknowledged them. He walked past his business associates, past his friends, past the mayor and 3 city council members, all focused on reaching the woman in the emerald green dress who stood by the windows. Tamara watched him approach, her pulse racing but her expression calm. Courtney, standing beside her, noticed Harrison's approach and smiled. "Looks like Harrison wants to say hello. I'll catch up with you later, okay? Enjoy the party." "Thank you," Tamara said quietly. Then Harrison was there, standing 2 feet away, staring at her with an expression she could not quite read. Shock? Admiration? Regret? Maybe all three. Tamara, he said, and his voice sounded different than it did in his office. Softer, uncertain. You came. You invited me, Mr. Pierce? It would have been rude not to accept. You look. He paused, seeming to struggle for words. You look absolutely stunning. I had no idea. I didn't expect. You didn't expect your cleaning lady to clean up so well? Tamara supplied, her tone even but with a hint of challenge. Harrison flinched. I deserve that. And worse. Tamara, I need to apologize to you. What I did, inviting you the way I did, it was cruel and inexcusable. I've been thinking about it for 2 weeks, feeling terrible. I wanted to take back the invitation but didn't know how without making things worse. This was not what Tamara had expected. She had prepared herself for mockery, for laughter, for subtle jabs disguised as compliments. She had not prepared for genuine remorse. Why did you do it? She asked. Why invite me as a joke in the first place? Harrison looked down at his shoes, then back up at her. Because I'm an idiot who's been living in a bubble for too long. Because I forgot how to see people as people instead of just their job titles or bank accounts. Because my friends are terrible influences and I've let them make me terrible too. There's no good excuse, Tamara. I was cruel and I'm sorry. Truly sorry. A waiter passed by and Harrison grabbed 2 champagne flutes, offering one to Tamara. She accepted it, their fingers brushing briefly. The simple touch sent an unexpected jolt through her. Thank you for the apology, Tamara said carefully. It takes courage to admit when you're wrong. I told my staff that anyone who treats you with anything less than complete respect tonight will answer to me personally. You're my guest and you deserve to be treated as such. I mean that. Tamara nodded, allowing his words to settle over her. Maybe Dorothy had been right. Maybe this evening would be full of surprises. May I ask you something? Harrison said. Yes. Where did you get that dress? It's exquisite. It looks like something from a high-end designer, but I don't recognize the label. A friend made it for me. She used to design gowns for actresses and celebrities. She's very talented. She certainly is. You look like you belong on a red carpet. Harrison paused. Actually, would you like me to introduce you to some people? I have a feeling you'll have a lot more in common with my guests than I realized. Before Tamara could respond, a voice called out behind Harrison. There's the birthday boy. Harrison, get over here. We need you for a toast. Harrison glanced back at Tyler, the blonde man who had suggested the cruel invitation in the first place. Tyler's eyes widened when he saw Tamara, his expression shifting from casual friendliness to shock. Is that the cleaning lady? Tyler said, his voice loud enough to carry. Several people nearby turned to look. Harrison's expression hardened. Tyler, shut up. Right now. But the damage was done. People were staring now, curious about the exchange. Tamara felt heat rising to her cheeks, felt the familiar urge to run, to hide, to disappear. Then she remembered Dorothy's words. Rise above it. Don't engage with cruelty. She set her champagne glass down on a nearby table and looked directly at Tyler. Hello. I'm Tamara Johnson. Yes, I work for Mr. Pierce's cleaning company. It's how I pay my bills while I rebuild my life after some difficult circumstances. Is there something wrong with honest work? The directness of her response seemed to catch Tyler off guard. He stammered, his face reddening. No, of course not. I just didn't expect to see you here. Mr. Pierce invited me and I accepted with gratitude. Just as I would accept any invitation extended with kindness. She emphasized the last word slightly, letting him know she was aware of his original intentions. Harrison stepped closer to Tamara, positioning himself slightly between her and Tyler. Tamara is my guest, Tyler. If you have a problem with that, you can leave. The small group that had gathered to watch the exchange murmured. Tyler looked like he wanted to say something else, but Harrison's expression made it clear that would be a very bad idea. Tyler muttered something about getting a drink and hurried away. An older gentleman in the group stepped forward, his expression thoughtful. He had silver hair and wore a perfectly tailored gray tuxedo. Tamara Johnson, did you say? Not Richard Johnson's daughter? Tamara turned to him, surprised. Yes, sir. Richard Johnson was my father. The man's face lit up with recognition and sadness. I thought I recognized the name. My dear, I knew your father well. We served together on the architectural board for 5 years. Richard was one of the most talented architects I've ever had the pleasure of working with. What happened to him and your mother was a tragedy. I'm so sorry for your loss. Thank you, Tamara said softly. That's very kind of you to say. I'm Harold Stevens. I run Stevens Architecture now, but I learned half of what I know from your father. He was generous with his knowledge and his time. The scandal was a disgrace. Everyone knew he was innocent, but by the time the truth came out, it was too late. Harold shook his head sadly. How are you doing, my dear? Are you doing all right? The genuine concern in his voice nearly undid Tamara's composure. I'm surviving, Mr. Stevens. Taking things one day at a time. Are you still in architecture? Following in your father's footsteps? No, sir. I studied music, actually. Piano performance at Juilliard. But I had to leave after my parents passed. Juilliard? Harold repeated, impressed. Richard mentioned your musical talent. He was so proud of you. He used to carry pictures of you performing and show them to everyone. Tears pricked at Tamara's eyes. She had not known that. Her father had been proud but quiet about it, never one to boast. Knowing that he had shared his pride with colleagues made her heart ache with love and loss. More people had gathered now, drawn by the conversation. An elegant woman in a silver gown stepped forward. You're Richard Johnson's daughter? I remember meeting you once, years ago at a charity auction. You performed a Beethoven sonata. I still remember how beautiful it was. Another person chimed in, then another. It turned out that several people at the gala had known her parents, had worked with her father, or had attended events where Tamara had performed. They surrounded her with stories and condolences, treating her not as a cleaner who did not belong, but as one of their own who had fallen on hard times. Harrison stood to the side, watching this unfold with an expression that grew increasingly uncomfortable. He had invited her to mock her, to prove to his friends that she did not belong in their world. Instead, he was learning that she had belonged in this world long before he ever met her. Harold Stevens turned to Harrison. You've done a good thing tonight, Harrison, inviting Tamara to your gala. Your grandmother would have approved. Elizabeth always believed that privilege came with responsibility, and that responsibility included looking out for those in our community who needed support. Harrison swallowed hard. I didn't know Tamara's history when I invited her. I should have. I should have taken the time to know the people who work for me instead of treating them as invisible. Well, you know now, Harold said. And now you have an opportunity to do something good with that knowledge. Richard Johnson's daughter should not be cleaning offices. She should be finishing her education and using her considerable talents to make the world better. Perhaps you could help with that. Several people murmured agreement. Tamara felt overwhelmed by the attention, by the kindness from people she had not expected anything from. These were strangers, yet they were rallying around her simply because her father had been a good man and she was his daughter. I would be honored to help, Harrison said quietly, looking at Tamara. If you would accept the help. Tamara thought about Dorothy's words. Accept gifts with grace. Let people help you. Yes, she said, her voice steady despite her emotions. Yes, I would accept help with gratitude. Thank you. A waiter announced that dinner would be served in 10 minutes. The crowd around Tamara began to disperse, though several people stopped to give her their business cards and ask her to contact them about opportunities. Harold Stevens insisted she call his office on Monday to discuss a position with his firm. Another woman, a director at a prestigious music academy, said they were always looking for talented instructors. Within 15 minutes, Tamara had gone from being a joke to being someone people wanted to help, wanted to hire, wanted to include. The shift was dizzying. Harrison gently touched her elbow. Would you like to sit with me for dinner? My table has a few empty seats. I'd like you to meet some people who aren't terrible human beings, unlike Tyler. Tamara smiled slightly. I would like that, thank you. He led her across the ballroom to a table near the stage. Several people were already seated there, including Courtney, who waved cheerfully when she saw Tamara approaching. I saved you a seat, Courtney called out. As Tamara sat down, Harrison took the seat beside her. The other people at the table introduced themselves. A tech entrepreneur, a museum curator, a nonprofit director, and a retired judge. They were all friendly, engaging, and genuinely interested in getting to know her. Dinner was elaborate. Multiple courses, each one more beautifully presented than the last. Tamara navigated the place settings with ease, muscle memory from her former life guiding her through which fork to use and when. She conversed naturally with the people at her table, discussing music, architecture, and the challenges of rebuilding after loss. Harrison watched her throughout dinner, his expression thoughtful. At one point, between courses, he leaned closer and spoke quietly so only she could hear. I judged you based on your uniform and your job title. I never looked deeper, never wondered who you were beyond what I could see on the surface. That was wrong and I'm ashamed of it. You're extraordinary, Tamara. Truly extraordinary. And I was too shallow and self-absorbed to notice. We all make mistakes, Mr. Pierce. What matters is what we do after we realize we're wrong. You apologized sincerely, and you're making sure I'm treated well tonight. That takes character. Call me Harrison, please. And thank you for being gracious about this. You would have every right to tell me off and walk out. That wouldn't help anyone, Tamara said. Anger is easy. Grace takes work, but it's usually worth the effort. Harrison smiled, and it was different from the smug, confident smile she had seen in his office. This smile was genuine, a little sad, but warm. My grandmother used to say something similar. She would have liked you. Dorothy, the woman who made my dress, knew your grandmother. She said Elizabeth Pierce was a wonderful person. Dorothy Green? She made your dress. Harrison looked stunned. Dorothy was my grandmother's favorite person. She made most of her formal wear. I had no idea she was still sewing. She works for the cleaning company, doing alterations on uniforms. But she still has all her skills. She helped me prepare for tonight. She's a remarkable woman. She is. And she clearly saw something special in you, or she wouldn't have gone to so much trouble. Harrison paused. I'm starting to see it too. There was something in his voice that made Tamara's heart skip. She looked at him, really looked at him, and saw past the expensive clothes and practiced charm. She saw someone who was recognizing his own flaws and genuinely trying to be better. She saw someone who might be, underneath all the privilege and posturing, a decent person. The orchestra began playing again, a beautiful waltz. Several couples moved to the dance floor. Harrison stood and extended his hand to Tamara. Would you dance with me? As a way of apologizing properly? Tamara hesitated. Dancing with Harrison Pierce felt like crossing some invisible line, moving from professional distance to something more personal. But Dorothy had taught her to accept offers with grace, and this offer came from a place of genuine respect. Yes, she said, taking his hand. I would be happy to dance with you. They walked to the dance floor together, and Harrison placed one hand on her waist while holding her other hand in his. They began to move to the music, and Tamara found that he was a good dancer, confident but not showy. Where did you learn to dance? She asked. My grandmother insisted. She said a gentleman should know how to properly dance with a lady. I took lessons for years. He smiled. I hated it as a kid, but I'm grateful now. What about you? My mother loved dancing. She taught me when I was little. We used to dance in our living room, just the two of us, to whatever music my father had playing in his office. They sound like they were wonderful parents. They were. They gave me everything they could. Love, support, education, opportunities. When I lost them, I felt like I lost my foundation. For 3 years, I've been trying to figure out how to stand on my own without them. And you have, Harrison said quietly. You've been standing on your own this whole time. Working, surviving, maintaining your dignity through circumstances that would have broken many people. That takes incredible strength, Tamara. The song ended and another began. They kept dancing. Other couples moved around them, but Tamara barely noticed. She was focused on Harrison, on the way he looked at her with growing respect and something else she could not quite name. Admiration? Interest? Attraction? Whatever it was, it made her nervous in a way that had nothing to do with cruelty or mockery. When the second song ended, Harrison walked her back to their table. The night continued with more conversation, more laughter, more moments where Tamara forgot she was supposed to be the outsider at this event. She felt included, valued, seen. At one point, the lights dimmed and a cake was brought out for Harrison's birthday. Everyone sang, and he blew out the candles with a smile that looked younger and more genuine than any expression Tamara had seen on his face before. As the party began to wind down around 10:30, Harrison found Tamara standing by the windows, looking out at the city lights. Thank you for coming tonight, he said. This party would have been empty and meaningless without you here. You reminded me of something important. Something my grandmother tried to teach me before she died. What's that? That people matter more than money. That kindness matters more than status. That who we are is determined by how we treat those who can do nothing for us. He looked at her seriously. I want to help you, Tamara. Not because I feel guilty, though I do. And not because other people are watching, though they are. But because it's the right thing to do. Because you deserve better than cleaning offices when you have so much talent and potential. Will you let me help you? Really help you? Tamara met his eyes. A month ago she would have refused out of pride. But she had learned that accepting help with grace was not weakness. It was wisdom. Yes, she said. Yes, I will accept your help. Thank you, Harrison. He smiled, and this time there was relief in his expression. Good. We'll figure out the details together. But first, there's something I think you should do. What's that? I think you should play for us. Tamara stared at Harrison, certain she had misheard him. I'm sorry, what? Play piano for us. The orchestra is taking a break soon, and I happen to know that the pianist they hired is running late. He called an hour ago saying he was stuck in traffic and might not make it at all. We need someone to fill the gap. Harrison looked at her intently. You studied at Juilliard. You must be incredible. Would you be willing to play? Fear shot through Tamara like ice water. She had not played piano in 3 years, not since her mother's funeral when grief made it impossible to touch the keys without breaking down. The idea of performing in front of hundreds of people, many of whom now knew who she was and what she had lost, felt overwhelming. Harrison, I haven't played in years. I don't think. I understand if you're not comfortable, he said quickly. I'm not trying to pressure you. But I overheard you humming Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major last week when you were cleaning my office. You hummed it perfectly, every note in place. That kind of musical memory doesn't just disappear. And honestly, after everything I put you through, I would love to give you an opportunity to show everyone here what you're truly capable of. Tamara looked past Harrison at the grand piano sitting on the stage. It was beautiful, a Steinway concert grand that probably cost more than she had earned in the past 3 years combined. The stage lights made it gleam, and she could almost feel the keys under her fingers, could almost hear the music that lived inside that instrument. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her memory. When opportunity knocks, child, you open the door. Even if you're scared, even if you're not ready, you open that door and see what's on the other side. What would you like me to play? Tamara heard herself ask, surprising even herself. Harrison's face lit up. Whatever you want. Whatever feels right to you. Just share your gift with us. Before Tamara could change her mind, Harrison was walking toward the stage, motioning for the orchestra conductor to join him. They spoke briefly, and the conductor nodded, then raised his hands to quiet the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, the conductor announced, his voice carrying across the ballroom. We have a special treat this evening. Miss Tamara Johnson, a Juilliard-trained pianist, has graciously agreed to perform for us. Please welcome her to the stage. Applause filled the room. Tamara felt hundreds of eyes turn toward her. Her legs felt weak, her hands trembled slightly, but she forced herself to walk toward the stage. Courtney gave her an encouraging smile as she passed. Harold Stevens nodded with approval. Even Tyler, watching from a corner table, looked curious rather than mocking. The walk to the stage felt both endless and too short. Tamara climbed the steps carefully, mindful of her heels and the dress's delicate fabric. The piano waited, its polished surface reflecting the stage lights. She sat on the bench, adjusting her position, and placed her hands on the keys. They felt cool and smooth under her fingers, familiar despite the years of absence. The ballroom grew quiet. 300 people waited, watching her. Tamara closed her eyes and thought about her father, who used to sit beside her during practice sessions, reading architectural plans while she played. She thought about her mother, who would stop whatever she was doing to listen when Tamara performed. She thought about Dorothy, who had given her this dress and this opportunity. She thought about her grandmother, who had taught her that grace under pressure was the truest measure of strength. And then she began to play. She chose Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major, the piece Harrison had heard her humming. It was one of her father's favorites, a piece he had requested countless times. Her fingers found the notes automatically, muscle memory and years of training taking over where conscious thought failed. The music flowed from the piano, soft and melancholic at first, then building in emotion and complexity. Tamara poured everything she had not allowed herself to feel for 3 years into that performance. The grief, the loneliness, the exhaustion, the tiny sparks of hope that had kept her going. Every emotion found expression through Chopin's beautiful composition. She played with her eyes closed, no longer aware of the audience, no longer self-conscious about being judged. There was only the music, the piano, and the memories of the people she loved who were no longer here to hear her play. When the final notes faded into silence, Tamara kept her eyes closed for another moment, letting the music settle into her bones. Then she opened them and looked out at the ballroom. Every person in the room was on their feet, applauding. Some were wiping tears from their eyes. Others looked stunned, as if they had just witnessed something transcendent. The applause was deafening, genuine, full of respect and admiration. Tamara stood and gave a small bow, overwhelmed by the response. As she walked off the stage, people reached out to touch her arm, to say words of praise, to simply connect with her after sharing that moment of beauty. Harrison met her at the bottom of the stage steps. His eyes were red and he looked shaken. That was one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard. Thank you, Tamara. Thank you for sharing that with us. Thank you for giving me the opportunity, she replied softly. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. Person after person approached Tamara, offering compliments, business cards, and opportunities. The director of a concert series asked her to perform at an upcoming event. A music school administrator offered her a teaching position. A wealthy patron of the arts offered to sponsor her return to Juilliard, covering full tuition and living expenses. Tamara accepted each offer with gratitude, writing down contact information and promising to follow up. It was overwhelming but also exhilarating. In one evening, everything had changed. She was no longer invisible, no longer just a cleaner struggling to survive. She was Tamara Johnson, talented pianist, architect's daughter, survivor. As midnight approached and the gala began to wind down, Harrison found her again by the windows. "Can I give you a ride home?" he asked. "My driver is waiting, and I don't want you taking a bus in that beautiful dress." "That's very kind of you, but I already have a car service arranged. Dorothy took care of it." "Then let me at least walk you out." They walked through the hotel together, past staff members cleaning up from the event, past security guards, through the elegant lobby, and out to where Tamara's car waited at the curb. "Tonight was not what I expected," Harrison said as they stood on the sidewalk. "I thought I was being generous by apologizing and making sure you were treated well. But you didn't need my generosity. You had it within you all along. You just needed the opportunity to show it." "We all need opportunities," Tamara said. "I've learned that over the past 3 years. Sometimes we can create our own opportunities, but sometimes we need someone else to open a door for us. You opened a door tonight, Harrison. Maybe not for the reasons you originally planned, but you did. And I'm grateful for that. I'd like to open more doors for you if you'll let me. I meant what I said about helping you get back to Juilliard or whatever path you want to pursue. And I'd like to get to know you better. Not as my employee but as a person. Would you be willing to have coffee with me sometime? Just to talk." Tamara studied his face in the streetlight. The arrogance she had seen in his office was gone, replaced by genuine interest and something that looked like vulnerability. He was asking, not demanding. Offering, not expecting. "Yes," she said. "I would like that." Harrison smiled, and it transformed his entire face. "Good. Really good. I'll call you next week to set something up. Have a safe ride home, Tamara." "Good night, Harrison." The driver opened the car door and Tamara slid into the back seat. As the car pulled away from the curb, she looked back to see Harrison standing on the sidewalk, watching her leave, a thoughtful expression on his face. Tamara leaned back against the seat and let out a long breath. She felt exhausted but also energized, drained but also filled up. Tonight had been terrifying and wonderful and transformative in ways she was still trying to process. Her phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Dorothy. "Tell me everything. I want all the details. And I'm so proud of you, child." Tamara smiled and typed back, "Tomorrow? I'll tell you everything tomorrow. But Dorothy? Thank you. Thank you for believing in me when I couldn't believe in myself." The response came immediately, "Always, sweet girl. Always." As the car drove through the city toward her small apartment, Tamara looked down at the silver necklace Dorothy had given her, at the little bird in flight. She had flown tonight. She had risen above the cruelty and fear and self-doubt. She had reclaimed a piece of herself she thought was lost forever. And this was only the beginning. The days following the gala felt surreal. Tamara's phone rang constantly with calls from people she had met at the party. The concert series director offered her a performance slot in 3 months with a generous payment. The music school administrator confirmed a part-time teaching position that would start immediately, working with young students learning piano. Harold Stevens invited her to his office to discuss an administrative position at his architecture firm, something that would honor her father's legacy while providing stable income. But the most significant call came from a woman named Professor Janet Ellis at Juilliard. She had heard about Tamara's performance from someone who attended the gala, and she remembered Tamara from her years as a student. "We were all devastated when you had to leave," Professor Ellis said during their phone call on Monday afternoon. "You were one of our most promising students. I would like to discuss your return to complete your degree. We have scholarship funding available specifically for students who had to leave due to hardship. Would you be interested in meeting to discuss this?" Tamara sat on her small couch, phone pressed to her ear, tears streaming down her face. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I would be very interested." "Wonderful. Let's schedule a time for you to visit campus. Bring your resume and any recordings of recent performances. We'll figure out how to make this work." After that call ended, Tamara sat in her apartment and cried. Not sad tears, but tears of relief and gratitude and disbelief that her life could change so dramatically in just one weekend. 3 days ago, she had been an invisible cleaner with no prospects and no future beyond survival. Now she had multiple job offers, a path back to her education, and hope that life could be good again. She called Dorothy immediately to share the news. I knew it, Dorothy said, her voice filled with joy. I knew that gala would change everything for you. You deserved this, child. You deserved every bit of it. I could never have done it without you, Dorothy. You gave me more than a dress. You gave me back my self-worth. No, sweet girl. You always had that. I just helped you remember where to find it. Now, what are you going to do about that young man? What young man? Don't play coy with me. Harrison Pierce has been asking about you. How do you know that? Because I ran into his assistant at the grocery store yesterday, and she told me Harrison has been distracted all week, asking about you constantly. Apparently, he wants to help you but is worried about overstepping. He's trying to figure out how to support you without making you feel like he's trying to control your life. Tamara smiled despite herself. He offered to help me get back to Juilliard. He said he would pay for everything. And what did you tell him? That I appreciated the offer but wanted to explore other options first. I need to do this on my own as much as I can. I've been accepting help with gratitude, but I also need to prove to myself that I can rebuild my life through my own efforts. That's wise, child. But don't be too proud to accept help when you genuinely need it. There's a difference between dependence and allowing people to support you. Harrison wants to help because he cares, not because he pities you. That matters. How do you know he cares? He barely knows me. Dorothy laughed softly. Because I've known that boy since he was 10 years old. I know what he looks like when he's interested in someone. And I saw him at the gala, watching you like you were the only person in the room. He's interested, Tamara. The question is, are you? Tamara did not answer immediately. She thought about Harrison's apology, his genuine remorse, the way he had looked at her while she played piano. She thought about how he had defended her against Tyler, how he had introduced her to people with respect, how his expression had softened when she spoke about her parents. Maybe, she admitted. But it's complicated. He's a billionaire and I'm barely surviving. That's not exactly a foundation for a relationship. Your circumstances don't define your worth. You know that, right? You're not barely surviving. You're a talented musician, an educated woman, someone with integrity and grace. Harrison sees that. The question is, do you? After they hung up, Tamara sat with Dorothy's words. She realized that despite everything that happened at the gala, despite the job offers and the opportunities, part of her still felt like the invisible cleaner. Part of her still believed she was less than unworthy of Harrison's attention or anyone's respect. But that was not true. That had never been true. Her circumstances had changed, but she had not. She was still Richard and Patricia Johnson's daughter. She was still the girl who had been good enough for Juilliard. She was still someone who deserved kindness and opportunity and love. On Wednesday evening, as Tamara was returning from a job interview at Harold Stevens' firm, her phone rang. It was Harrison. Hi, he said, and she could hear nervousness in his voice. I hope it's okay that I'm calling. I got your number from our HR department. I wanted to check in and see how you're doing. I'm doing well, thank you. Busy with interviews and meetings. It's been a whirlwind few days. I heard. Word travels fast in our circles. Everyone's talking about your performance at the gala. You're becoming something of a celebrity in the classical music world. That's a bit of an exaggeration. I don't think so. Tamara, I also called to ask if you would have dinner with me. Not as employer and employee. Just as two people getting to know each other. Would you be interested? Tamara's heart beat faster. This was different from the coffee invitation he had made at the gala. Dinner was more formal, more clearly a date. Yes, she said before she could overthink it. I would like that. Great. Really great. How about Saturday evening? I know a quiet restaurant, nothing too fancy or overwhelming. Just good food and conversation. That sounds perfect. I'll pick you up at 7? Actually, I'll meet you there. If you text me the address, I can take the bus. Tamara, please let me send a car for you. Consider it a small gesture of appreciation for agreeing to spend your evening with me. She thought about Dorothy's words. Accept help with grace. All right. Thank you, Harrison. After they hung up, Tamara realized she was smiling. A real, genuine smile that came from excitement rather than politeness. She felt nervous but also hopeful. Whatever was developing between her and Harrison was unexpected and maybe complicated, but it was also real. The rest of the week passed quickly. Tamara gave her notice at the cleaning company, thanking them for the work but explaining she was pursuing other opportunities. Her supervisor was understanding, even happy for her. She accepted the teaching position at the music school, which would start the following Monday. She also met with Professor Ellis at Juilliard and learned that she qualified for a full scholarship that would cover tuition, housing, and a modest living stipend. "We want you back, Tamara," Professor Ellis had said. "You have a gift that deserves to be nurtured. The music world needs more people like you, people who understand that music isn't just technical skill. It's emotional truth. That's what you brought to your performance at the gala. That's what we want to help you develop further." By Saturday evening, Tamara felt like she was living a completely different life than the one she had inhabited just 2 weeks earlier. She stood in her small apartment, getting ready for her dinner with Harrison, wearing a simple blue dress she had owned since college. It was not as elegant as Dorothy's emerald gown, but it was pretty and appropriate for a quiet dinner. Dorothy had insisted on doing Tamara's hair again, arriving at 6 to help her get ready. "This is an important night, child. First real date with a man who clearly adores you. We need to make sure you feel confident and beautiful. He doesn't adore me. He barely knows me. He's getting to know you. That's what tonight is about. And trust me, I saw how he looked at you at the gala. That man is smitten." At 7 o'clock precisely, a car arrived to take Tamara to the restaurant. It was the same driver who had taken her to the gala, and he greeted her warmly. "You look lovely, miss. Mr. Pierce is a lucky man." The restaurant was in a quiet neighborhood, away from the busy downtown areas. It was small and intimate, with maybe 15 tables, soft lighting, and live acoustic guitar playing in the corner. Harrison waited at a table near the window, standing when he saw her enter. He wore dark jeans and a navy sweater, more casual than she had ever seen him. He looked younger, more relaxed, and genuinely happy to see her. "Tamara, you look beautiful. Thank you for coming. Thank you for inviting me." They sat, and for a moment, there was awkwardness as they both tried to figure out how to transition from the formal interaction of employer and employee to something more personal. But then Harrison smiled, that genuine smile she had seen at the gala, and said, "So, I have to ask, what did you think of Tyler's face when he saw you at the party?" "He looked like he had seen a ghost." Tamara laughed, surprised by the question. "He looked shocked. I think he expected me to show up in my cleaning uniform. He apologized to me the next day, by the way. Said he was embarrassed by his behavior and hoped he hadn't ruined my birthday. I told him the only thing he ruined was his own reputation. Several people have stopped associating with him after seeing how he treated you. I don't want to cause problems in your friendships. Tyler was never really a friend. He was someone I spent time with because we moved in the same circles. But I'm realizing I need to be more selective about the people I surround myself with. My grandmother used to say that you become like the 5 people you spend the most time with. If that's true, I've been becoming someone I don't like very much. I want to change that." They ordered dinner and talked for hours. Harrison asked about her time at Juilliard, and she told him about performances and professors and the joy of studying something she loved. She asked about his business, and he explained that he had inherited Pierce Holdings from his parents but had spent the last 10 years trying to expand it beyond real estate into technology and sustainable energy. "I want to build something meaningful," he said. "Not just accumulate wealth but use resources to solve problems and help people. My grandmother believed that wealth was a tool, not an end goal. I lost sight of that after she died. I let making money become the only thing that mattered. But meeting you reminded me that there's more to life than net worth and business deals." "You give me too much credit," Tamara said softly. "You were already changing. You stopped Tyler from being cruel at the gala. You defended me. That came from you, not from me. Maybe. But you were the catalyst. You showed up with such grace and dignity, even knowing you were walking into a situation designed to humiliate you. That took courage I'm not sure I could have mustered. You inspired me to be better." As dinner progressed, Tamara felt herself relaxing completely. Harrison was easy to talk to, thoughtful in his questions, genuinely interested in her thoughts and opinions. He made her laugh with stories about his childhood, about his grandmother's strict etiquette lessons and his failed attempts at rebellion. "I tried to dye my hair purple when I was 15, he admitted, grinning. "My grandmother found me in the bathroom with a box of dye and just looked at me with this disappointed expression. She didn't yell or punish me. She just said, 'Harrison, purple hair won't make you interesting. Being a good person will.' Then she left. I never dyed my hair." "Your grandmother sounds like she was amazing." "She was. I wish you could have met her. She would have loved you. She valued substance over style, character over status. You embody all the qualities she tried to teach me. After dinner, Harrison walked Tamara to the car that would take her home. They stood on the sidewalk under a street light, the evening air cool but pleasant. I had a wonderful time tonight, Harrison said. Can we do this again? Maybe next week. I'd like that, Tamara replied. Harrison hesitated, then reached out and gently took her hand. I know this is unconventional. I was your employer and now I'm asking to be something more. I understand if that makes you uncomfortable or if you need time to figure out what you want. But I need you to know that I'm genuinely interested in you, Tamara. Not because I feel guilty, not because you're some project I want to fix, but because you're remarkable. You're talented and kind and resilient. And I would really like to see where this might go if you're willing. Tamara looked down at their joined hands, then back up at Harrison's face. She saw sincerity there, vulnerability, hope. I'm willing, she said softly. I want to see where this goes too. Harrison's smile was brilliant. He squeezed her hand gently, then helped her into the car. As the driver pulled away from the curb, Tamara looked back to see Harrison standing on the sidewalk, watching her leave, that same thoughtful expression on his face that had been there after the gala. Her phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Harrison. Thank you for giving me a chance. You won't regret it. I promise to be worthy of your time and your trust. Tamara typed back, thank you for seeing me, for really seeing me. That means more than you know. As the car drove through the city, Tamara realized she felt something she had not felt in 3 years. Not just hope, which had been slowly growing since the gala, but actual happiness. Pure, uncomplicated joy at the possibility of building something new, something good, something that honored her past while creating a better future. She touched the silver necklace Dorothy had given her, the little bird in flight. She was flying now higher than she had ever imagined possible. And she was no longer flying alone. Are you enjoying Tamara's journey from invisible to valued? Her story reminds us that sometimes the people we overlook are carrying their own incredible stories. If this journey of transformation resonates with you, please subscribe to see how her story unfolds and share in the comments what you would do in her situation. Your support means the world. Monday morning arrived with a crispness that matched Tamara's energy. She woke early, put on professional clothing for her first day at the music school, and arrived at the building with a mix of excitement and nervousness. The Westside Music Academy was housed in a beautiful old building with high ceilings and large windows that let in plenty of natural light. The sound of various instruments practicing filled the hallways, creating a symphony of learning and growth. The director, a warm woman named Mrs. Peterson, greeted Tamara in her office. We're so pleased to have you joining us. Your reputation from the gala has preceded you. Several parents have already requested their children be placed in your classes. We've assigned you 8 students to start, ranging in age from 7 to 14. They're all at different skill levels, so you'll need to tailor your approach to each one. Tamara spent the morning meeting her students and their parents, assessing skill levels and planning lessons. By lunchtime, she felt energized by the work. Teaching music to children was different from performing, but it was deeply satisfying. She saw her younger self in several of the students, that hunger to learn and improve, that love of creating something beautiful. During her lunch break, her phone rang. It was Harrison. How's your first day going? He asked. Really well. The students are wonderful, and I'm enjoying the teaching more than I expected. That's great. Listen, I wanted to ask you something. My company is hosting a charity gala next month to raise funds for arts education in underserved communities. Would you be willing to perform? We'd pay you, of course, and all proceeds from the event would go directly to music programs in public schools. I would love to, Tamara said without hesitation. What kind of performance are you thinking? Whatever you're comfortable with. A solo piano piece, maybe accompanied by vocals if you're interested. We want to showcase the kind of talent that these programs can nurture. You're proof of what's possible when young people have access to quality music education. They talked for a few more minutes about details, then Harrison had to go to a meeting. But before hanging up, he said, I'm proud of you, Tamara. For building this new life for yourself, for teaching these kids, for being willing to share your gift. You're making a real difference. His words warmed her throughout the rest of the day. That evening, after her classes ended, Tamara decided to visit Dorothy at the warehouse. She had not seen the older woman since Saturday morning when Dorothy had helped her prepare for dinner with Harrison. She wanted to thank her properly and share all the good news about the teaching position and the upcoming performance. When Tamara arrived at the warehouse, she found Dorothy in her usual corner, working on a uniform alteration. Dorothy's face lit up when she saw Tamara. There's my girl. Come tell me everything. How was your dinner with Harrison? They sat together, and Tamara shared details about the restaurant, the conversation, the way Harrison had taken her hand and expressed his interest in pursuing a relationship. Dorothy listened with a knowing smile, occasionally interjecting with comments like, "I knew it," and "that boy has good sense." "So what happens now?" Dorothy asked when Tamara finished. "We're taking it slowly. Getting to know each other. He asked me to perform at his company's charity gala next month. And he's been helping me prepare for my return to Juilliard. Not by paying for things but by connecting me with people who can offer advice and support." "That's good. He's learning to help without taking over. That's important." Dorothy paused, her expression becoming more serious. "Tamara, I need to tell you something. Something about Harrison's family." "Okay. You know, I worked for his grandmother for many years. I loved Elizabeth Pierce. She was a good woman with a strong moral compass. But she carried guilt about her son, Harrison's father." "What kind of guilt?" "Harrison's father, Thomas Pierce, was a good man when he was young. But wealth changed him. He became obsessed with growing the family business, with competing with other wealthy families, with status and power. He started treating people poorly, including his staff. Elizabeth tried to guide him back to better values, but he wouldn't listen. She worried he was raising Harrison the same way, teaching him that money was more important than character." Dorothy adjusted her glasses, looking directly at Tamara. "Then Thomas and his wife died in that boating accident when Harrison was 22. Elizabeth became Harrison's guardian, and she tried desperately to undo the damage Thomas had done. But Harrison was grieving and angry, and he pushed her away. By the time she died 3 years later, she felt like she had failed both her son and her grandson." "That's heartbreaking," Tamara said softly. "It is. But here's the thing I want you to understand. The night before Elizabeth died, she called me to her bedside. She was very ill, barely conscious. But she made me promise something. She said, 'Dorothy, if Harrison ever finds his way back to goodness, if he ever shows signs of becoming the man I hoped he would be, I want you to help him. I want you to remind him that kindness matters more than wealth, that people matter more than profit. Promise me you'll help him if he gives you the chance.'" Tamara felt tears pricking at her eyes. "You think that's what you were doing when you helped me? Helping Harrison through me?" I think Elizabeth knew that the only way Harrison would change was if he met someone who challenged his worldview. Someone who couldn't be bought or impressed by his wealth. Someone who would show him what really matters. Dorothy reached out and took Tamara's hand. "I think Elizabeth sent you into Harrison's life, child. And I think helping you was my way of keeping my promise to her. So you didn't just help me because you're kind. You helped me to help Harrison?" "No, sweet girl. I helped you because you needed help and I had the ability to provide it. That's what kindness is. But I won't pretend there wasn't a bigger picture. I won't pretend I didn't hope that you walking into that gala would shake Harrison awake and remind him of the values his grandmother tried to teach him." Dorothy squeezed Tamara's hand. "And it worked. Look at him now. He's apologizing for his cruelty. He's treating people with respect. He's using his wealth to support arts education. He's becoming the man Elizabeth hoped he would be. That's partly because of you." Tamara sat with this information, processing what it meant. She did not feel used or manipulated. If anything, she felt honored to be part of something larger than herself, a ripple of kindness that stretched across generations. "Thank you for telling me this," Tamara said. "And thank you for keeping your promise to Elizabeth. She sounds like she was a remarkable woman." "She was. And you are too. Never forget that, child. You have value that has nothing to do with Harrison Pierce or anyone else. You're worthy of love and respect because of who you are, not because of what you can do for others." They talked for another hour, then Tamara headed home. As she rode the bus through the city, she thought about everything Dorothy had said. She thought about the complex web of kindness and guilt and hope that had brought her to this moment. She thought about how one person's values could influence generations, how one promise could change multiple lives. The next few weeks passed in a beautiful blur. Tamara taught her classes, practiced piano in preparation for the charity gala, and went on regular dates with Harrison. They went to museums and concerts, had quiet dinners and long walks. They talked about everything, their childhoods, their fears, their dreams for the future. Harrison was changing in visible ways. He started volunteering at a children's hospital, reading to sick kids just like he had done before his parents died. He restructured his company's benefits to provide better pay and working conditions for lower-level employees. He started a scholarship fund for children of service workers who wanted to pursue higher education. "You're inspiring me to be better," he told Tamara one evening as they sat in a park watching the sunset. Every time I'm about to make a business decision based purely on profit, I think about you and your parents. I think about integrity and values. I ask myself what Elizabeth would want me to do. It's changing everything about how I run my company." "I'm glad," Tamara said, leaning her head on his shoulder. "But remember, you're making these changes because they're right, not because of me. I'm just the person who happened to remind you of what you already knew deep down." "Maybe. But I'm grateful you came into my life when you did. I was becoming someone I didn't like. Someone my grandmother would have been ashamed of. You helped me find my way back." 3 weeks before the charity gala, Tamara received her acceptance confirmation from Juilliard. She would return in the fall semester to complete her final year. Professor Ellis had arranged everything, ensuring Tamara would have housing on campus and could focus entirely on her studies and performance. "This is it," Tamara said to Dorothy when she shared the news. "This is my life coming back together. No, child. This is your life moving forward. It was never really broken, just paused. Now you're resuming your journey, stronger and wiser for everything you've survived." The night of the charity gala arrived. This time, Tamara was not walking into a room full of strangers as an outsider. This time, she was the featured performer, someone invited not as a joke but because her talent was valued. This time, she wore a dress she had purchased herself with money from her teaching job. A beautiful deep blue gown that complemented her skin tone perfectly. Harrison met her in the hotel lobby before the event began. He was talking with event coordinators, ensuring everything was perfect. When he saw Tamara, his expression softened into one of pure admiration. "You look absolutely stunning," he said, taking her hand and kissing it gently. "Are you nervous about performing?" "A little. But mostly excited. This is for a good cause and I'm honored to be part of it." The ballroom was filled with people by the time the performance began. Tamara sat at the piano, took a deep breath and began to play. She had chosen a medley of pieces. Chopin's Nocturne that she had played at Harrison's birthday, followed by a Mozart sonata, and ending with an original composition she had written about her journey from loss to hope. The audience was completely silent during her performance, captivated by the emotion and skill she brought to each piece. When she finished, the applause was thunderous. People stood, cheering, some openly crying at the beauty of what they had just witnessed. After the performance, as Tamara mingled with guests, a young girl approached her. She was maybe 10 years old, black like Tamara with big eyes full of wonder. "Miss Johnson," the girl said shyly, "I want to play piano like you someday. My teacher says I have talent, but my family doesn't have money for a really good piano or for private lessons. Do you think I can still be good anyway?" Tamara knelt down to the girl's level, her heart aching with recognition. This could have been her, could have been any talented child from a family without resources. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Brianna." "Brianna, I want you to listen to me carefully. Talent doesn't care about money. It doesn't matter if you practice on an expensive piano or a keyboard from a thrift store. What matters is your dedication, your passion, your willingness to work hard. I practiced on a piano at my school for years because my family couldn't afford one at home. I still became good enough for Juilliard. You can do the same thing." "Really? Really? And I'll tell you something else. The man who organized this event? Mr. Pierce? He's creating a program to provide instruments and lessons to kids who can't afford them. You should have your parents talk to him. I bet he can help you." Brianna's face lit up with hope. "Thank you, Miss Johnson. Thank you so much." After Brianna ran off to find her parents, Harrison appeared at Tamara's side. "That was beautiful," he said quietly. "What you said to her. I meant every word. That little girl has talent and dreams. She deserves the same opportunities one had. Which is why I want to make you an offer." Harrison led her to a quiet corner of the ballroom. "I'm starting a foundation. The Elizabeth Pierce Foundation for Arts Education. It will provide instruments, lessons, and mentorship to talented kids from low-income families. I want you to help me run it. You would work part-time, coordinating with schools and teachers to identify students who need support. The schedule would work around your Juilliard classes and your teaching at the Music Academy. What do you think?" Tamara stared at him, overwhelmed. "Harrison, that's incredible. But are you sure you want me involved? I'm still rebuilding my own life." "You're perfect for this precisely because you're still rebuilding. You understand what these kids are going through. You understand how one opportunity can change everything. Plus, my grandmother would have wanted you involved. This foundation is my way of honoring her memory and keeping the promise she tried to get me to make. I want to do it with you." Tamara thought about accepting offers with grace. She thought about kindness creating ripples. She thought about how helping Brianna and children like her would honor her parents' memory and everything they had taught her about using privilege and opportunity to lift others up. "Yes," she said. "Yes, I would be honored to help you with this. Thank you for asking me." Harrison pulled her into a hug, right there in the middle of the ballroom in front of hundreds of guests. It was a public display that declared to everyone watching that she mattered to him, that she was important, that she was valued. When they pulled apart, Harrison kept his hands on her shoulders, looking at her intently. "I need to tell you something. Something I should have said weeks ago." "What?" "I'm falling in love with you, Tamara Johnson. I'm falling in love with your strength and your grace and your enormous heart. I'm falling in love with the way you teach your students and the way you inspire me to be better. I'm falling in love with everything about you, and I needed you to know that." Tamara's breath caught. She had felt the same way but had been afraid to say it, afraid that it was too soon or that her feelings were influenced by gratitude rather than genuine emotion. But hearing Harrison's confession, seeing the vulnerability and sincerity in his eyes, she knew her feelings were real. "I'm falling in love with you too," she whispered. Harrison's smile was radiant. He cupped her face in his hands and kissed her gently, a kiss full of promise and hope and the beginning of something beautiful. Around them, the charity gala continued. People raised money for arts education, committed to supporting talented children, celebrated the power of music to change lives. But in that moment, Tamara and Harrison were focused only on each other, on the unexpected journey that had brought them together, on the love that was growing between them. Later that night, as Tamara was leaving the event, she found Dorothy waiting in the lobby. The older woman had attended the gala as Tamara's guest, proud to watch her perform. "Elizabeth would be so happy," Dorothy said, hugging Tamara tightly. "She would be so proud of both of you. You've given him back his humanity, child. And he's given you back your hope. That's what love should do. Thank you, Dorothy. For everything. For seeing me when I was invisible. For helping me fly. You were always meant to fly, sweet girl. Always." 3 months later, spring had transformed the city. Trees bloomed with pink and white flowers, the air was warm without being too hot, and everything felt new and full of possibility. Tamara stood in front of the Juilliard building, taking a deep breath before walking inside for her first day back as a student. She wore green pants and a white blouse, professional but comfortable. Her hair was styled simply, and the silver necklace Dorothy had given her rested against her collarbone. She looked like someone who belonged here, who had earned her place through talent and hard work. The past 3 months had been transformative. She had continued teaching at the Music Academy, had worked with Harrison to establish the Elizabeth Pierce Foundation, and had prepared for her return to school. Her life was busy, filled with purpose and meaning. And her relationship with Harrison had deepened into something real and lasting. They had spent countless hours together, learning each other's rhythms and quirks. Harrison had met the few remaining relatives Tamara had, distant cousins who lived in other states. Tamara had met Harrison's business partners and the few friends he had maintained through the years. They had been to charity events and quiet dinners at home. They had discussed their futures and how those futures might intertwine. As Tamara walked through the Juilliard hallways, students rushing past with instrument cases and sheet music, she felt a sense of rightness. This was where she was supposed to be. This was the path her parents had wanted for her, the dream she had thought was lost forever. Professor Ellis met her outside the main performance hall. "Tamara, welcome back. We've assigned you to the advanced program, which means you'll be working with our top faculty and participating in major performances. Your schedule is going to be intense, but I know you can handle it." "Thank you, Professor. I'm ready." "Before classes start, I wanted to tell you something. The foundation you're working on with Harrison Pierce is already making a difference. We've received 3 applications from students who received instruments and training through your program. One of them is incredibly talented. She reminds me of you at that age." "Is her name Brianna?" Tamara asked, thinking of the little girl from the charity gala. "No, though we do have Brianna in our junior program. This is a different student. 15 years old, plays violin like she's channeling some higher power. She lost her parents 2 years ago and has been living with foster parents who couldn't afford lessons. Your foundation changed her life." Tears pricked at Tamara's eyes. "That's why we're doing this. Every kid deserves a chance to develop their talents, regardless of their circumstances. Well, you're providing that chance. You and Harrison are doing remarkable work." Classes began, and Tamara threw herself into her studies with renewed passion. She practiced for hours every day, performed in student recitals, and collaborated with other musicians on various projects. She was challenged in ways she had not been in years, pushed to explore new techniques and interpretations. In the evenings, she taught her classes at the music academy, working with students who ranged from beginners to advanced players. She loved watching them progress, seeing their confidence grow as they mastered difficult pieces. Several of her students had entered competitions and won, bringing attention to the academy and pride to their families. And whenever her schedule allowed, she spent time with Harrison. He had changed so much from the arrogant billionaire who had invited her to his party as a joke. He was kinder, more thoughtful, more aware of how his words and actions affected others. He still ran his business with skill and intelligence, but now he balanced profit with purpose. The Elizabeth Pierce Foundation had become his passion project, something he spoke about with genuine enthusiasm rather than the calculated interest he had once shown for deal-making and acquisitions. One Saturday afternoon in late May, Harrison took Tamara to a gallery opening. The event was showcasing architectural designs from up-and-coming architects, and Harrison thought Tamara might enjoy seeing work similar to what her father had done. As they walked through the gallery looking at blueprints and scale models, Harrison stopped in front of a display that made Tamara's breath catch. It was a collection of her father's work, designs he had completed before the scandal destroyed his reputation. How? Tamara started, unable to finish the question. I've been working with Harold Stevens for the past 2 months, Harrison explained quietly. We gathered all of your father's existing designs, both completed projects and concepts he never got to build. We're putting together a retrospective exhibit that will tour major architecture museums. We want people to remember Richard Johnson for his brilliance, not for false accusations. His legacy deserves to be honored. Tamara stared at the display, at her father's elegant designs and careful notations. She saw buildings she remembered visiting as a child, structures that had made her father proud. She saw concepts he had sketched late at night in his home office, dreams he never got to realize. She couldn't find words adequate to express what this meant to her. Your father was an incredible architect and a good man, Harrison said. What happened to him was unjust. This exhibit is a small way of correcting that injustice, of making sure his contributions to the field are recognized and celebrated. The first showing will be here in the city in 3 months. I was hoping you would speak at the opening, share memories of your father and his work. Yes, Tamara whispered. Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Harrison. This means more to me than you could possibly know. I do know, he said gently, because I've listened to you talk about your parents, because I understand how important legacy is, and because I love you and want to give you everything that was taken from you, in whatever ways I can. They stood together in front of her father's designs, Harrison's arm around Tamara's waist, and she felt a sense of peace she had not experienced since her parents died. The pain of losing them would never fully go away, but this honor, this recognition of her father's work, provided a measure of closure and healing. Later that evening, Harrison took Tamara to the same park where they had watched the sunset months earlier. They walked along a path lined with blooming flowers, the spring air sweet with the scent of new growth. I have something I want to show you, Harrison said, leading her to a bench that overlooked a small pond. I've been working on a project and I want your input before I move forward. He pulled out his phone and showed her architectural plans. It's a community arts center. It will provide free music lessons, art classes, and theater programs to children from low-income neighborhoods. There will be practice rooms with quality instruments, performance spaces, even recording studios. The Elizabeth Pierce Foundation will run it, but I want it to be a collaborative effort with local schools and organizations. Tamara scrolled through the plans, her heart swelling with emotion. Harrison, this is incredible. This will change so many lives. That's the idea. I'm naming the music wing after your parents, the Richard and Patricia Johnson Music Center. They believed in the power of arts education, and this is a way to honor their memory while continuing their values. They would have loved this, Tamara said, wiping tears from her eyes. They would be so proud. I hope so. But Tamara, I need to ask you something important. Harrison took her hands in his expression serious. I know we've only been together for a few months. I know we're both still figuring out our lives and our futures. But I need you to know that I'm serious about this relationship. About us. I'm not looking for something casual or temporary. I'm looking for a partner, someone to build a life with, someone to share all the challenges and joys that come with trying to make the world a little bit better. I feel the same way, Tamara said softly. When I'm with you, I feel like I can do anything. You've given me back my confidence and my dreams. You've helped me remember who I am beneath all the grief and struggle. You did that yourself. I just had the privilege of watching you fly. Harrison paused, then reached into his jacket pocket. Which brings me to my next question. He pulled out a small velvet box and opened it. Inside was a ring, simple and elegant, a single diamond set in a silver band. Tamara Johnson, will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life loving you, supporting you, and being amazed by you? Will you help me build this foundation and this community center and a life that honors both of our families' legacies? Will you be my partner in every sense of the word? Tamara looked at the ring, at Harrison's hopeful expression, at the future he was offering her. A year ago, she had been invisible, struggling to survive, convinced her life would never improve. Now she had love, opportunity, purpose, and a man who saw her for exactly who she was and loved her anyway. Yes, she said, her voice strong and clear. Yes, I will marry you. I will build this life with you. I will love you and support you and push you to be your best self, just like you've done for me. Yes to all of it. Harrison slipped the ring onto her finger, then pulled her into a kiss that was both celebration and promise. When they pulled apart, both of them were smiling through tears. My grandmother would have loved you, Harrison said. She would have been so happy to know that her grandson found someone who makes him want to be better, who reminds him of what really matters. I think she sent me to you, Tamara replied, thinking of Dorothy's story about Elizabeth's deathbed promise. I think she knew you needed someone to remind you of your values, and I needed someone to help me rebuild my life. She brought us together, even from beyond the grave. They sat on the bench as the sun set over the pond, planning their future. They would get married in a year, after Tamara graduated from Juilliard. They would continue running the foundation together, expanding it to serve more children in more communities. They would use their combined resources and talents to create opportunities for others, to lift up those who had been knocked down by circumstances beyond their control. I want our wedding to honor both of our families, Harrison said. Your parents' memory and my grandmother's values. I want it to be about love and commitment and the beginning of something beautiful. And I want Dorothy to be there, Tamara added, as the guest of honor. Without her, none of this would have happened. She saw me when I was invisible. She gave me the dress and the confidence to walk into your party. She kept her promise to your grandmother by helping me, which helped you. She's the reason we're sitting here right now. Then we'll make sure she has the best seat in the house. We'll honor her the way she deserves. As the evening grew darker, they walked back to Harrison's car, hand in hand. Tamara looked at the ring on her finger, at the man beside her, at the city lights in the distance. She thought about her journey from cleaning offices to this moment, from invisible to valued, from broken to whole. The path had been painful and difficult. There had been moments when she had wanted to give up, when survival felt like the most she could hope for. But she had kept going, day after day, choosing grace over bitterness, hope over despair, kindness over anger. And now she was here. Engaged to a man who loved her, returning to her dream school, teaching children, running a foundation that would change lives. She had reclaimed everything she had lost and gained even more than she had imagined possible. Thank you, she said to Harrison as they drove through the city. For what? For seeing me. For really seeing me. Not the cleaner in a uniform, not the girl who used to have money, but me. The real me. You saw my worth when I had forgotten it myself. You were always worthy, Tamara. You never stopped being worthy. But you're welcome. And thank you for giving me a second chance. For not judging me based on my worst behavior. For helping me become the man I should have been all along. They drove in comfortable silence for a while, then Harrison said, You know what the best part of this whole story is? What? It started with cruelty and became something beautiful. It started with me trying to mock you and ended with me loving you. That's the power of grace and forgiveness. That's the power of giving people the opportunity to be better. You could have written me off as a terrible person who didn't deserve your time. Instead, you gave me a chance to change. That changed everything. Kindness creates ripples, Tamara said, repeating Dorothy's words. Your grandmother showed kindness to Dorothy. Dorothy showed kindness to me. I showed kindness to you by accepting your apology and your attempts to make amends. Now we're creating kindness for children who need it. The ripples keep spreading, touching more and more people. That's how we change the world. One act of grace at a time. When they arrived at Tamara's apartment, Harrison walked her to her door. I'll see you tomorrow? We have that meeting with the foundation board. I'll be there, Tamara promised. Good night, Harrison. I love you. I love you too. More than I ever thought possible. Tamara went inside and immediately called Dorothy to share the news. The older woman cried happy tears and insisted on hosting an engagement party. Elizabeth would have wanted a celebration. She would have wanted to see her grandson happy and settled with a woman of character. I'll make sure we honor her memory properly. Later, as Tamara prepared for bed, she looked at her engagement ring in the lamplight. The diamond caught the light and sparkled, beautiful and simple. She thought about everything that had led to this moment, all the pain and loss and struggle, all the small acts of kindness that had rebuilt her life piece by piece. She thought about her parents and how proud they would be. She thought about her grandmother and the wisdom she had imparted. She thought about Dorothy and the dress that had changed everything. She thought about Harrison and how love had found her when she least expected it. And she thought about Brianna and all the children the foundation would help, children who deserved the same opportunities she had received, children who would learn that circumstances don't define worth, that talent deserves nurturing, that dreams are worth pursuing no matter how impossible they seem. Tomorrow she would wake up and continue building this new life. She would practice piano, teach her students, meet with the foundation board and plan a wedding. She would honor her parents' memory by living fully and loving generously. She would honor her grandmother's teachings by choosing grace and hope even when life was difficult. But tonight, she would simply rest in gratitude. Gratitude for survival, for kindness, for second chances, for love that saw past circumstances to the person beneath. She touched the silver necklace Dorothy had given her, the little bird in flight. She was flying now. Higher and farther than she had ever imagined. And she was no longer flying alone.